Yeah. 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 Allow me to introduce myself. Just in case you don't know. Say hello. 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 Yeah. Say hello. Say hello. Now I don't quite know how to start this. I can't lie, there's been some conflict.
And we're recording on the mixer as well. Aviation Marie. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I am doing fantastically well. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. First of all, I wanted to welcome you on All Things Aviation Pod. You are one of the reasons why I started this podcast.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I definitely am a beneficiary, a fangirl, and a participant whenever you want me. So,
Well, I think we met on Clubhouse, and we started doing these Clubhouse rooms, in the thick of the pandemic. I joined Clubhouse in December of 2020. And then when we started doing All Things Aviation, you were one of the people that would come into the room, and I could listen to you talk for hours, just about the things that you do. And a lot of that is because you do quite a lot of things within the aviation community. So that makes you such an interesting person. I think we should have a look at what it is that you do, because for all the listeners, they don't know who Aviation Marie is. And I am one of your biggest fans. So why don't we start by you telling us what it is that you do in your day-to-day life?
okay. Well, I guess I'll start with my day job.
Okay.
So I am a partner at a law firm called K&L Gates. They have over 40 offices globally. A lot of lawyers doing a lot of different things. So I'm very happy to be joining this platform. And I came to K&L Gates to do a few things focused on aviation and aerospace. They had, before we joined, and my group, by the way, is in the US is an all-female partner team. So very fun.
Wow. Is
there's
that intentional, or is that just by default?
It just happened that way.
Okay.
So I met the partner that I came with to K&L Gates. She used to be my lawyer when I was working in house for a company, and we had worked for many years together doing different projects across the globe. I had the bankruptcy of an airline in Russia, so she had the global reach. So we had this one interesting project that was essentially done as soon as the Russian bankruptcy system had been essentially, like, the ink was still drying on the laws of bankruptcy at that time. And so this was the first test of the Russian bankruptcy system. It was a Russian airline that went out of business, and we had claims for, engines that were leased there, aircraft that were leased, and parts that we had sold. And there was also, we repaired engines. So they had a couple of engines in our shop as well. And they owed us some money for those repairs.
Wow.
So that was one of the major projects that I did with my partner. And then when I was looking to go back to kind of, the big law world, she said, well, I need someone in Florida. We have a lot of stuff going on in aviation, but there's a lot of stuff going on in aerospace that's down the street from you. Would you like to join? So I said, absolutely. Why not? And as you know, I talk a lot about, all things aviation, but all things space as well.
Yeah.
So I joined this team, and they had a very big aviation finance practice already existing in Asia and Europe and the Middle East. They did not have a practice group focused on the Americas, so the Western Hemisphere.
Yep.
So we fit in really nicely with that team. They represented airlines and some lessors. We were more the financiers and the lessor side, but we did a little bit of airlines. So we just kind of combined our efforts. But also on the aerospace side, K&L Gates is very well known for the space policy group. So essentially that deals with the regulations in space, that deals with lobbying for aerospace interests, and working closely with the US government here. And so it was nice because our practice in space is more business and finance side of space. So we were able, again, to kind of mesh our clients and our practices and be able to do full service space and aviation.
Wow.
Because this group also does aviation. The FAA is the same entity at the top of aviation and aerospace. You have to deal with the FAA.
With the FAA, right?
Whatever you're doing, it's all touching the FAA, right?
Yeah.
So, even when you change ownership, you have to let the FAA know.
Wow.
The aircraft is changing hands, and this is the new owner, and and disclose, whether they're U.S. persons, because that's, and to maintain an unregistered aircraft, you have to be a U.S. person.
Yeah, and the FAA is the FDA of the drug world. They're the policing body that ensures that everything is done in order, basically.
Exactly. All the licensing, all the permitting, all the ownership, everything that's going on, and so since I'm getting involved in a lot of spaceport projects, which is airport space, it's essentially going to be a combination of both, right? So so the FAA again,
they're the guys. It must be a huge learning curve for them as well, because for the longest time they've been very focused on aviation in the way that we understand it, so commercial and general aviation. So, with the onset of this space race in the last sort of 3, 4, 5 years, the FAA must have taken on quite a lot and, learned so much about that space, because I don't really think it was really their space before now, was it?
That's where the Office of Space Transportation is. That it is. There's already that was an existing, but obviously that part of it has definitely changed and evolved. For example, they had all these kind of regulations that they would be like, okay, grab this piece of that regulation, grab that piece, and they had kind of this motley crew of regulations. And then last year they did an entire revamp of entry. So this is launch licensing. So launch and re-entrance licensing, and they created what was called Part 450, FAA 450.
Wow.
So that's supposed to be this performance-based review, and it's supposed to be more flexible so that they can talk to the different launch providers and different people and figure out how to create a safety scheme that fits in the overall kind of airspace landscape.
Yeah.
It all involves airspace, right? I mean, there's commercial aircraft that are flying, there's rockets that are launching. We have space tourists now that we saw in July in Virgin Galactic and Blue Origin. And those are two different types of launch, right? You saw Branson's, Virgin Galactic. They do a horizontal, they take off on the bottom of a plane, and then the plane drops them down, and then they take off, and they go, and the spaceship drops off, and it takes off like a rocket. Meanwhile, Blue Origin, it's a rocket and with a capsule on top, and then so the rocket goes up and the capsule comes down, and parachutes down to back to Earth.
At the end of the day, everybody's using airspace, so it's being able to manage it in such a manner that everybody can use the airspace in a manageable manner. When you're looking at sort of ports or space ports, so these are ports on Earth right now in different locations around the globe where this rocket can come back into land, basically, is that what that is?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways that they re-enter.
Right.
There's I just mentioned Blue Origin, they parachute the capsule back in, but the rocket comes back and lands back on the landing pad.
Yeah.
So we saw that as well. And then you have SpaceX, their Falcon 9 rocket takes off and then lands in the middle of the ocean on a essentially a robotically operated, collector, essentially the reentry pad.
Wow.
And it lands right there, and it's SpaceX, right? So there's like an X, and then it goes and it lands on a barge, and then they bring it back in, via sea and via the port that we have at Cape Canaveral to reuse the booster. And those have been reused, and that's part of the reason why the price of rocket launches is going down.
What do you think? What do you think this whole thing is about space in the last sort of 3-4 years? Everybody's trying to go to space, and what is it exactly that's driving that? Is that just we've come to that point in our human existence where that's the next level in our innovation, is exploring what's outside of our globe, our planet, or what is it exactly? Do you think?
So we talk a lot about kind of how the military, there's military objectives, right?
Yeah.
National security interests and military objectives.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that, and part of, sorry about that,
Yeah, sure.
the space race is getting to the higher ground, right? Just like, whoever gets to the higher ground, even if you're in a video game, simulating, the military, whoever gets to the higher ground wins, And so we were doing that in this form of these satellites, right? Because communications, communications and military communications became dominated by satellites. So that was kind of the higher ground. And the military was tasked with essentially going up there and making sure everything was safe to do it. And they invest the money in essentially clearing the higher ground. That's essentially, so that now we see the commercial market coming in and seeing, okay, well, now that we've cleared LEO, which is low Earth orbit, now, their focus on the military is focusing higher, right? They're going into geosynchronous, they're going to middle Earth orbit, MEO, geo, they're going to the moon, they're going to Mars now, right? Because now we're seeing all the national interests. I mean, we saw 3 probes, land in Mars or arrive in Mars.
Yeah.
With the UAE, with China, and with
China,
the US.
definitely
in
China
February,
well.
yeah. And so, all these compete now. Everyone's fighting for the higher ground as part of this, and now we're seeing, LEO opening up for the commercial players, right? So we're seeing the International Space Station, which is going to be retired,
right?
And we see, how beneficial an international space station is. And the Chinese and the Russians are working on creating, the Chinese and in partnership with the Russians are creating their own space station.
Right.
And we have commercial players that are coming in to create here in the US. There's 2, Axiom and Sierra Space, that are coming in and creating, modules for the future space station, because we see a benefit in that. Because NASA still wants to do experiments there. We still want, it looks like everyone wants to, fly space tourists there. So we see these commercial companies coming out and saying, okay, we have the technology, we have the development, we have the financing, we're getting this up to speed. And then, we'll lease it for those civil interests. That's the NASA side, not the military. And the military also is benefiting from that.
Wow.
Because everything is getting more commercial, and the prices are dropping, and it's becoming a more competitive market. And obviously the commercial sector likes to make things more and more efficient. That's what we do.
Wow.
Cheaper, faster, more efficient. So we've been seeing the commercial players kind of coming in. I mean, obviously the Elon effect cannot be denied in this whole process.
Yeah.
We have the Falcon 9 that does successful missions all the time. They have the Crew Dragon capsule that delivers passengers and cargo to the space station now. And they're, they're very successful. I mean, they're financing a portion of it in, a lot of it in their own satellites, in their systems, the Starlink systems that they're sending up, 60 satellites at a time. But, now that we see that it's reliable, that the commercial players are in it and doing what they need to be doing to, be competitive and drop the prices, you're just seeing a lot more activity. But of course, that on Earth, that here where we are, creates, interruptions in airspace, because that's how we get there, right?
Yeah.
So, so essentially, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the disruption. And every time, aircraft have to, go around a launch window, it's costing money.
Yeah, for sure.
And so there's definitely a need for integration of that, those, the launch, that's why we have, for example, Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, they have their own spaceports in southern Texas, 2 separate spaceports that are operating just exclusively for them. So they can, test Starship and build more Starships and build engines in the case of Starbase City in southern Texas. And then Jeff Bezos, can test their new Shepard rocket. And then when they had that space tourist launch, that's where it was. It took place in in their own spaceport.
So, wow, this is all very fascinating stuff. So, assuming we get past the stage where people are able to just go to space for tourism, is the end goal for becoming intergalactic escaping Earth? Because that's what a lot of people seems to be saying in the comment sections. Is, are we just trying to escape Earth because something bad may happen, or is it just there's just this sort of inherent sort of adventurous nature that we have to explore and just see what's out there?
So I think there's definitely a lot of those interests happening at the same time. So it's parallel interests. Yes, there's people that want to get off the planet. There's people that want to explore. And, from my perspective, I always think about, our limited resources here on Earth and how amazing this planet is. And in my concept, us being able to become, a spacefaring, planet or multiplanetary or, invest in getting resources from the asteroid belt or other planetary or kind of understanding will help us kind of protect our own planet and create what I feel like the Earth in my kind of my starry eyes is create this planet as like a preserve, like a natural, a beautiful planet to be well cared for. If we can learn from different planets that had greenhouse runaway greenhouse effects, how to help our own planet avoid that same fate, then we can protect this planet even more. I mean, we're we're doing carbon capture prizes with the new X Prize program, trying to figure out how to not get to that point where we have the runaway greenhouse effect on this planet.
Wow.
And we keep getting closer and closer, and the warnings are becoming more and more dire in terms of what we're facing. And we're seeing it, a lot of it, in terms of the environment, what's happening, with all the flooding, that happened in Germany and Italy and
China.
our fire. And in China,
Nigeria,
the fires that
everywhere.
we're getting, Nigeria, yes, everywhere, all over the planet.
What's going on?
And so for me, it's a lot. It's all combined together. Yeah, there's the adventurers, great. Those people that want to get off planet, great. There's the people that want to take care of the planet, great. There's people that that want to run away from things and and do something and not be, what I'm saying, mine an asteroid and just be in their own space.
Yeah, and some people just want to escape their ex-wives or whatever,
Exactly.
Those people are people too, right?
Yeah. I mean, and it's going to be, it's not easy. It's hard. It's hard to do all these things. So, I mean, and it'll give a lot of people second chances. I was talking with someone in a clubhouse room about, kind of, creating these programs for ex-convicts that can't get jobs here, that can't, become productive members of society, to get a space job and, and help develop, the spacefaring capabilities.
Wow.
As a second chance. Why not?
Wow. Yeah.
There's just a lot of different ways that we do this, but like I said, from my hope is that will lead to our planet being this beautiful natural park that we take care of. But a lot of the stuff that's changing too on this planet is point-to-point travel. We're seeing so many changes with point-to-point travel. With more electric vehicles, eVTOLs, electric vertical takeoff and landing, but also electric, the electric market to kind of also be more environmentally safe. We're seeing supersonics, that essentially gets people there in half the time. Right. So, home for dinner. That's the big push and point to point. And then, and even, you go even one step further with the suborbital vehicles, like a Starship, which is, like it's going to be, they're mass producing them and they're going to use them in all different kinds of ways, including moving people point to point in orbital hops, anywhere on the planet within an hour or less.
Wow. Yeah.
The U.S. military is investing in the Starship program as a cargo option. To move cargo anywhere, like so that we have a base, for example, the U.S. does in Diego Garcia. So they would be able to take all this equipment, anything that they need, whether it's, for rescue missions, obviously for aggressive missions, but also, humanitarian missions, and essentially take it from one point to the other within less than an hour. Just do a suborbital hop.
Wow.
So they're going to do that with cargo and they're going to do that with passengers.
Wow.
So you can get anywhere on the planet. I can go to Tokyo in an hour, have some business meetings, get some,
Home for lunch and dinner.
for lunch and dinner, and then go home and sleep in my own bed.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Wow, this is. Do you want to Shall we put our tinfoil hat for a moment, just for like a minute? So this conversation about aliens. So what are your thoughts? Do you think that there are some extraterrestrials here with us, or because it's something that a lot of people are talking about as well? We're saying UFOs, we're saying this. U.S. government is putting statements out saying we're not sure about what we're seeing. What are your thoughts? Because you're very big into space. I want to see what do you think is going on here.
Well, I love that that they've kind of changed this whole analysis. Okay, so now they've admitted that there are, unidentified aerial phenomenon, right?
Yep,
So now
yep.
it's UAPs.
Yep.
UAPs phenomenon.
Phenomenal.
So we're taking a step into, okay, this is the new terminology. We're going to say it's aerial phenomenon, right? And they split it up into categories, like things we know about, things we are developing that we don't really want to tell people, but we know with some certainty. Things we don't know 100%, but we expect that it's other countries that are developing this technology, and we're kind of just seeing it. And then and then there's kind of this like open category of question mark, may or may not be, alien. And so I think that a lot of it is explained in kind of the technology that's being developed. There's a lot of, back and forth, testing flights that are happening everywhere. And I think that, we just don't know exactly what's all out there. And there's stuff the government doesn't want to tell us.
Definitely.
They don't want to admit that they're developing.
Definitely. I think, I want to believe that it's our technology. I think it would be nice if there are aliens from other planets here. It's kind of scary to think about, but I think it would be nice if some aliens are here from other planets. But that would also be scary because what would they be here to do? And are they watching us? Are they studying us? Is it like, a human studying insects, for instance? That would be terrifying to think about, but that would be so cool. But I think it's more.
Are we a zoo? Are we a zoo?
Yeah.
Are we their holiday plans?
Honestly,
come out and observe
and why? And it's because some people argue that we're not that interesting. I think we're very interesting. I think I would study me if I was an alien. I mean, what's not to study? We're on Earth. We are doing all manners of things. We're trying to go into space. We're in a phase in our existence where we're really, really innovating a lot of cool stuff. So about 200-300 years ago, there weren't even cars. There weren't aircrafts. There wasn't a telephone. There wasn't nothing like this, right? And in a space of 200-300 years, we've done all of these things. But that always ties into the conversation with me as well about, the pyramids and how they were built and, what happened back then and there. I don't think aliens built the pyramids, by the way. I think that really smart people in Africa built it all that while back then. But I think it's also important to know that, aliens, that's a very interesting topic because the more we go to space, we're definitely going to encounter something. For sure.
I mean, it has to, I've learned a little bit about kind of that theory, that there, however many billions of planets there are, and then they kind of do the equation, Drake's equation, that breaks down from like, okay, you have this number of stars that we can see. Okay, we can glean that there's multiple. So they have like all these like multiples, and then they kind of narrow down. Okay, here, these are inhabitable planets. Okay, well, this is our knowledge of what inhabitable is. Like we have our own environment, but what if there's other planets that were able to sustain life, in a different, instead of hydrogen and oxygen, and they have another element that supports life. We don't know how that all works out, and so like when they even kind of okay, which planets are habitable, and they kind of do the Drake's equation and they get down. And there's a couple of, like towards the end where it really narrows, they're really at like technologically advanced, species that come and they're able to explore their spacefaring. And it gets just narrower and narrower and narrower. So I feel like the more we're getting out there, that's essentially the Drake's equation is who's showing up on our door.
Yeah.
And the chances get smaller and smaller that it's an advanced, life form and so forth. Actually, if you get to watch, there's videos on YouTube and other places where you can find Carl Sagan explaining the Drake equation. I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Just to kind of go through it, the process. But yeah, I mean, as you get narrow, so there's the Drake equation gets narrower and narrower in terms of other species coming to see us or visit us. But the more we're going out and we're going, to these planets, the more we'll see
what's
whether
going
there's
on.
actual signs of life. And whether it's single-celled life, whether it's life that, is able to breathe nitrogen, for example. They're nitrogen life forms.
Yeah.
I mean, and we may be finding, non-intelligent life forms very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And then eventually, I don't know, it has there. I mean, I think it's impossible to not consider that it exists.
What if we get to some planets and we see evidence of what used to look like some form of, like, let's say, single cell organism that maybe contributes to, because isn't it something like asteroids brought some of the, proteins and, some of the biology that we now have on Earth came to Earth from other planets. So what if we get to Mars, for instance, and we see some evidence that, oh my God, it looks like something used to be here. What happened? And just like in the same way that we check a half-life and we do our science to find out everything, we check to see, well, how, do you know what I mean? Like, we're able to check
carbon dating
to find out that information, wow, that would be fascinating.
I mean, and like you said, these pyramids were built somehow.
Yeah.
These are, you know what I'm saying? And they were built by advanced life forms. That was likely us, but then somehow we lost the knowledge of how that actually happened, and what if there were periods on, of time on each planet where, you get to a certain height and then, like, for example, when the dinosaurs went extinct, after the Earth, then, okay, it eliminated life, but then life came back. So that, what if there's these kind of like flowering blooms of life, and then there's some times when, there's winters. In the lifespan of a planet. So maybe we get to a planet during one of these winter times. Maybe we get there, during a springtime, and now we're seeing actual life or, some form of life, even if it's primitive, hut-based, hunter-gatherer.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're non-spacefaring. They're just existing. So I think, it's also going to be a timing element. If Venus is the example of, runaway greenhouse gases, maybe there were people that contributed to that or species that contributed to that.
Species, right? For sure.
Right. So,
imagine if we're like in the hunter-gatherer stage as far as aliens that are very advanced are concerned. So they're looking at us going, oh, look at these guys. They think they're going to space, because they've been there, done that. They've they can travel however so many light speed years, into the future and backwards. So but we'll get into that stage now because, this is another thing I wanted to ask you. Do you think that a lot of this is predetermined? So do you think that life has already happened, or do you think that we're just living our own existence as it happens, to us? Or do you think that some of these things have already happened in a time capsule somewhere and we're just going through it? Do you know what I mean?
I do. I personally believe there's these flowering blooms of societies that we've had on this planet that have ebbed and flowed. Just based on, the carbon dating that happens and, examples of life that we don't know exactly everything that happened. We know bits and pieces and, like maybe Atlantis, like like underwater cities. What if they weren't underwater at the time and that was just, they got flooded and that's it. And then we lost all of that knowledge. I think there's, like I said, there has to be some kind of timing element to it. It's not just, conditions, but it's like all these conditions all at the same time, timing wise, what the planet looks like. If you look at the Earth and if you consider tectonic plate activity and kind of how things, move and shift and adjust, you can see that if you zoom out, that there's lots of possibilities of that, and
Wow.
and maybe examples of of people that have lived on this planet have destroyed it, and then we've had to rebuild it.
Yeah, that's another theory that a lot of people talk about is that what if something's happened and we've come along and tried to rebuild it? Because about, is it 12 to 15,000 years ago, there was a massive flood that's in like every sort of like religious texts. And, you can tell from the corrosion of the pyramids and different parts of the world that there was something here, but then there was a massive flood and it looked like we had to redesign or we had to reinvent from that point onwards. So that's interesting. So when we're going to Mars, are we going together or how are we going to do this? Because obviously, if it comes to that day in 10 or 15 years time and you say, Daps, I'm going to Mars, I'm going to the moon, I'd like to go with you. We can go together for like a week.
I'm right now, I'm only looking at about 100,000 feet. That's essentially my.
Well, that's like
right now.
That's what like $250,000 just for that.
Yes. Going to the space station right now as an astronaut or as an astro traveler is costing us $55 million right now. Is the ticket the price?
$55 million.
So, yeah.
Only only just $55 million. Yeah.
Plus the training, plus, you get some pretty cool spacesuits though, I would think.
And you get to keep those, don't you?
I'm pretty sure.
I mean, if you're going to pay that kind of money, you have to keep the spacesuits. You just can't wear it anywhere. You can't just show up to a date wearing your spacesuit though, going, hey girl, she'll be like, what are you doing?
Well, in this COVID world, you can't be too careful. So,
you can't, honestly, do you know what? If there's any time you could wear a spacesuit like that, it's definitely during COVID. But it would be really cool. It'd be really cool if you could get one that, like the Iron Man suit where you're wearing your normal clothes, but you press a button, then it just comes on. That would be really, somebody needs to try and design that whereby I'm dressed like this, but if I press a button, I can be Iron Man, but like in a spacesuit. That would be cool, man. That's only a couple of, definitely. Wow. So in your aircraft leasing world, I was talking to Captain Dave Johnson on the podcast a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
He was telling me about how a lot of the leasing companies are actually in Dublin. I mean, you have talked about this before that you used to go to Dublin. I didn't know this, and I lived in Dublin for 15 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, we got off topic, but yes. So in the aircraft finance world, Dublin is kind of the epicenter.
Wow.
That's where a lot of the leasing companies are based. People have, and the Irish have done a very good job at attracting, companies to go there with their treaties, with their tax benefits.
Yep.
And then part of the regulations are you have to have local Irish people to, own these companies and run these companies.
Wow. Yeah.
So you just can't just go there, you would have to live there.
You have to.
So I usually go every January. I have not been back since January of 2020, obviously, because of the things shut down in March. But I was there in January, and I did not go this year. But I'm hoping
that
I don't know with everything that's going on. It's like right now I'm planning 2 weeks in advance. I'll be at Satellite in Washington D.C. in less than 2 weeks.
Wow.
And you're like, okay, I think it's happening. But then I have other conferences. And I just don't know. I'm planning on going in January to Dublin, but with everything that's going on, you're just like. Question mark. I've been invited to speak at IAC in Dubai. So I'm there in October.
Wow. So that's definitely happening now.
Dubai. That's what we think. Like I said,
incredible.
So far they haven't announced cancellations. And then the NBAA, which is for the business aircraft, the business jets. That conference is in Las Vegas, also in October. So. Right now, crossing my fingers you just don't know at this point.
For sure.
In person, they're doing hybrid in person, and I don't know if that's, how it's going to run. But right now, we're scheduled.
You're very lucky because you do quite a lot of traveling. I mean, for the last 5-6 months, you've been going to Texas. Yes. You were in Canada just a couple of weeks ago, right?
Well, yes, I'm from Canada.
You're from Canada.
Yes, I'm from Canada. And I usually go in August because Miami heat in August is
unbearable.
bearable.
Yeah.
So I actually drove up to Canada with my dogs and spent a couple of weeks recharging my batteries.
Wow, you drove all the way from Miami to what part of Canada?
It's the province of Quebec.
Mm.
It's in it's northeast of Montreal. It's about 2 hours away outside of it's in the mountain area. It's near national parks, lakes, natural, lake areas.
Wow.
So it's kind of, my recharge time in August, and it was difficult to actually come back. I just came back this week and I did not want to come back.
Yeah, I can imagine. Parlez bien français, oui?
Oui, je parle français. Oui. Canadienne française.
Juste un petit peu.
Oui, je sais. T'aimes prétendre que tu parles le français. I love that. When you do those videos where you're pretending to speak French, where it's just like a French accent.
Oh my God.
That kills
You got me.
I love that.
It's like talking to a Frenchman. Hey, excuse me, I am looking for the mall. Do you know where the mall is?
Love that.
What, like, how long of a drive is Miami to Quebec? Like, what? How did you?
So door to door is 25 hours.
Jeez.
It's 25 hours. So on the way there, I decided to do the auto train. There's a train that you can actually put your car on the train. And it leaves near Orlando and it arrives in DC. So it saved me about half the drive. So I drove to Orlando.
Yeah.
And I got there by 2. The train leaves at 4. It's an overnight train.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the next morning I paid the priority. So my car was off in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And then from DC, I met my brother in Boston. And then from Boston, it's only 6 hours. So we drove to...
That's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So I broke it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's I was just telling my dad about that.
On the way back, I drove.
You drove on the way back?
What?
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
I drove the whole way. It was nice. I mean, I like the driving. It it relaxes me, but it's definitely not for every. And especially like as the temperature is getting hotter and hotter as I'm going further and further south. It's like,
why am I coming back still in this August heat? Wow. Yeah. One of the things that I like to talk to you about is when someone comes here and says, Aviation Marie, I want to buy an aircraft. And, you gave me some of the best lessons ever on how to... In fact, let me show off what you taught me. Can I show off a little bit of what you taught me? So our last conversation about buying an aircraft, you said that the first thing that you need to think about is the utility of the aircraft. That's the first thing you need to think about. Once you've thought about what you need the aircraft for, you can then speak to a broker and they'll, hopefully try and help you out with what's available in the market. How does that sound?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, since your goal is to get to Ibiza, to get to the, and so you want an entourage. You know how many passengers you want, because you want an entourage.
Definitely,
go there by yourself.
Definitely.
And so whether or not you want something that has short distances, long distances. Once you narrow down what your purpose is in having an aircraft. I mean, look, if you're going to be doing business meetings, all over the US and go back and forth, and you want a larger, a nice like G6 that has long range and, you're comfortable in. And sometimes you bring a couple of friends, sometimes or colleagues or people that you're flying around, so you're buying that kind of aircraft. If you're doing something, smaller or whatever, then maybe you buy, a small little 727 or 737, so you can pack, 50 of your and go to Ibiza.
I like
it just depends on what you want to do. So utility is the first one, and then there's a lot of brokers, and they specialize in specific aircraft types. Depending on what your needs are, they'll look at new aircraft, they'll look at used aircraft, and they'll help you kind of value what you want out of it. Some people buy it and they just want to use it once a month maybe, and then they want to lease it. So they're buying something that's an investment that they make money off of, and then have availability to use it.
Yeah.
So that's also another way, but obviously you're paying a little bit more for that as well.
And at the minute, if someone wanted to buy an aircraft, they can just go to you and you can put them or point them in the right direction. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, we have a lot of high net worth clients that, that are like, and then it's like, do you have an aircraft type or not? There's, that's the first question. Like, do you know?
Mhm.
But what do you need it for? And then you find them the right broker that either specializes in that aircraft or that, or that knows how to work with that particular person because that person is buying it for business versus, pleasure, or they're going to be investing in it as, to essentially, get it operated by a Part 135 by a charter company, and then they're just going to use it here and there. And there's a lot of different options in terms of, what you're going to buy and how you're going to use it.
How you're going to use it.
And then after that, it's getting the financing, right? So like I said, your first stop is your bank.
Definitely.
To see if they have an aircraft leasing. A lot of big banks here in the U.S. have a separate division in the bank that does financing for aircraft.
Well, aviation is massive in America. It's not as big in Europe. I think we're far behind. When I first moved not moved, but when I lived in Florida, I was there for about 7 months. I learned that there was something ridiculous, like at least over 1,000 airports or airfields, at least in just one state. And I thought this is insane because in the whole of Ireland and the UK, there's probably less than 50 or maybe 70 or 80. Do you know what I mean? It's not that much. So Florida is the state of aviation, is the home of aviation. You've got, the space guys there, you've got everything there. You've got Piper, they make their aircrafts there. I don't know where Cirrus is based, but you're a big proponent of the Cirrus jets because you fly on them a lot. You're telling us on Clubhouse.
I think the sales office is in Tennessee,
right.
And then the manufacturing, I couldn't. It's in a different state, but they're not manufactured here. But they're, my client that uses that they're a single fleet airline with the Cirrus Vision jets. It's a great airplane and it's practical. When flying commercially in places like Florida, where there are a lot of big cities that you can go to, it's very easy to get on a flight from Miami to Orlando, but there's a lot of nonstop flights there. But if I want to get on a flight to Tallahassee, which is the state capital, I usually have to fly up to Atlanta commercially. Up to Atlanta to then fly back down to Tallahassee. It takes me 6 hours.
Wow.
And it's just inefficient. So, and there's all these different cities here, like if I go up to the Space Coast, which is only 3-hour drive away, but let's say I don't want to drive, there's no real option, unless you're flying private, you're flying, or you are a pilot. So my client's business model is based on that kind of short distances and getting people, efficiently on the Vision Jet, the Cirrus Vision Jet from point to point.
Yeah.
Because point to point, honestly, is a market that we're going to see in the next 10 years, 15 years, be completely revolutionized.
Wow.
Completely. From the commercial airliners to, all the ESG, the environmental, social, every that kind of investment that's happening, to supersonic speed, to, like I said, suborbital, but also, the point to point in short distances is also changing because a lot of people are looking to just like get me to Tallahassee.
Yeah,
like,
I don't want to go to Atlanta.
I don't want to fly. That takes out all this time. It's all about the time machine effect.
Yeah.
If I can save time, then that method of transportation is a time machine.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah. It's just time you're never going to get back. If you think about, you're trying to get to Tampa, or you're trying to go to Boca Raton, or you're crossing the Everglades, going past Pahokee, Okeechobee on your way to Melbourne, for instance. I know there's an international airport in Melbourne, but you're trying to go to or you're going to Jacksonville. You want to be able to just go there and come back, and that's it.
That's it.
Do you know? Yeah. Wow.
So I think on a point-to-point perspective, we're going to see a lot of changes, a lot of developments. Especially in this country, like you said, there are airfields everywhere.
Everywhere.
So it's obviously going to be a proliferation, but our focus is also going to be Europe. Europe also has a lot of, like, maybe not within each country, but country to country.
Yeah.
Travelers that want to take easy options, and the train can be slow.
Definitely, yeah. The train is very slow.
Yeah, and the commercial routes are what they are. They don't cover everything. They cover the major thoroughfares.
Yeah.
So, I know that there's a lot of interest in regional, around that area, within Europe. to kind of fly to different cities, and because you have airports, but not airlines that are centered on that market. And especially now that they were shut down for so long, and now they're just coming back online on the commercial aircraft side, and the commercial airlines are just coming online, and they're serving the major markets. They're not serving all the tiny little, kind of tributaries that they kind of were trying to get into pre-pandemic. So, I mean, it's definitely going to change, with the technology change, with the people's goals changing, people's, like I said, home for dinner.
Yeah.
If the concept is home for dinner,
Yep.
then, we need a whole different point-to-point system.
For sure. And I think that's one thing that you and I have in common at the minute is I've still not taken my vaccine yet. I don't know since the last time we spoke if you've taken yours or...
Well, so I am going...
Oh,
I know.
They got you.
I have no choice. I mean, I can't even attend events
Wow.
without, without proof of, in certain places.
Yeah.
I didn't, it's one of those things I think is, it's just not a one size fits all solution.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I think everyone should work with their doctor. I think they should come from a place of, what works best. Again, utility, what works best for me.
Doesn't necessarily.
You don't have to if you don't have to travel, if you don't have to go places, if you don't have access to big, crowds of people, does it make sense?
Yeah.
Do you have young kids that are in school that are going to bring this home? I think that there is just a lot of different factors to it
to consider.
And health factors, obesity, vitamin D deficiencies, certain health conditions, all these things affect what you need and you don't need from, basic nutrition to the vaccine. So I believe that people need to, address their own personal kind of, situation.
When it comes to the vaccine, you're one of my true heroes because, obviously I'm younger than you. I'm not saying that you're old or anything, but I'm younger than you. There's no way to say that. I really thought about that before I said, I was like, how am I going to say I'm younger? But you never, you'd never taken it because you didn't feel like you needed to take it. And there's one thing you said that I'll never forget on Clubhouse was that I would only take the vaccine because I want to prevent myself from spreading it to other people. Prevent myself.
Right.
Otherwise, I feel okay. I feel fine. I don't have any underlying health issues. The only reason why I take it is because I do all these events, I meet all these people, and for the fear of infecting them, I will take it to protect them. And for the longest time, I was like, she's my hero. She doesn't realize it, but she's my hero because I did not want to take it for so long. And I still haven't taken it, but I think I would have to because I do a lot of things in the background where I have to go be around people. And I just think there's no way around it. You're just going to have to get it.
Yeah. I mean, the problem is that the vaccine's not doing that. It's not now with
these
new Delta variants. It's not, that goal is not being accomplished.
That's what I'm saying. So why do we still kind of have to take that? If you can take the vaccine and still get infected with COVID, or take the vaccine and still infect other people, what is the point of taking a vaccine then? Surely, shouldn't it be, look, at your own risk if you choose to take it or not? It's available if you want it, but if you don't want it, then that's at your own risk, whether you take it or not, because some people take the vaccine and succumb to it and pass away from maybe complications. And I know because I've played a funeral of a person that died 6 days later from taking the vaccine. Now, that's not everybody I know, because I also know a lot of other people that have taken it and have not died, but I definitely know one person that has died from it, So I think personally, someone like you should not have to take it even because you're doing your events, because you have no underlying health issues. You're okay. You're great. Look at you. You look great. Oh, I can't believe they got you. I can't believe they got you, man. I can't believe.
But no, I mean, look, I'm considering it now as like, if I would have to travel to different countries there, that I would, malaria or yellow fever, or there's specific geographical concerns. You're going to go to your doctor and you're going to say, I'm traveling here. What do you recommend? Well, you're definitely going to have to do malaria. You're going to have to do this. You're going to have, what I'm saying?
For sure.
So I'm considering it like that. I'm also very cautious because I've had very close people in my family have adverse reactions. So I'm working with my doctor to do it as limited as possible. Obviously, we finally got the Pfizer vaccine,
Right.
FDA approved.
Yeah.
And I'm doing it in a way that, makes sense with me and my doctor, that has been consulting with me my whole life
Yeah.
and knows that I don't get sick. I get sick once in a decade.
You said that.
Like,
yeah.
And I don't, and I never I got the flu vaccine 1 year because my doctor made me. I remember I was 33 and he said, people your age are dying. You need this vaccine. Plus it's not a needle, which
Which is
another
good.
thing. I hate needles.
Yeah.
Because it was essentially an inhalant vaccine that they had developed that, and so I was like, okay. And that's the only time I did it. But because, I listened to my doctor. I think it's very narrow-minded the way that the world is addressing this and saying that this is a single option solution. There's no box, for example, when you're traveling internationally that says, I got it and I have proof that I have antibodies. There's no it's just vaccine or else.
Yeah.
So I think it's a little limited. I think that, given that we're seeing the, especially like in Israel where all these people are vaccinated and now they're being hospitalized again because it's not as effective.
That is crazy.
I think we need to start expanding our thought process in these countries, that are to find out, what exactly else we can do to actually eradicate this, because it's not going away.
Yeah, it's not going away. We're having more and more variants, developing off the back of the previous ones. So it's just, I don't know. I think some people think that COVID is here to stay long term, which we understand. But, if you're a scientist and what you do is understanding and, working with these sort of viruses, not to put them under any kind of pressure, but you'd think that I know they're probably working really hard at some kind of an antidote. We don't know, obviously, but they probably are working at a way to make this maybe not go away, but a way that we can manage it where people are not dying, the mortality rates are really, really coming down and we're just able to live with it, But yeah, I mean, I haven't taken my vaccine yet and I think I'll have to, even though I don't need it. And again, as you said, it's not going to stop me from transmitting it. It's not going to stop me from getting it. I'm just going to take it because somebody says you can't go to Spain unless you take it,
Exactly. We got to go to Ibiza.
Hey, listen, there's a party at Ibiza unannounced. We haven't talked. Aviation Marie is going to be there, all right, all the way from Miami, Florida. We're going to kick it hard. You guys can all come through, But this has been really fun talking to you. As I was saying at the start of the conversation, we met on Clubhouse. Clubhouse has been instrumental in bringing a lot of people together during the pandemic. And do you still do Clubhouse much with your space rooms or?
Yeah, so I co-host the Space Rodeo Room. I just got asked this week from the host of the Space Law and Policy room to join, and I'm gonna moderate as much as I possibly can as well on space law.
Wow.
I do join here and there. There's a venture capitalist that does investment, and he has a weekly show, and I always tune into his show just because he's talking my finance language. He's he's talking about recent events. He talks about the SPAC craze. He talks about what an investor should know. They listen to pitches. People come on and pitch their companies. So there's things I definitely use. I feel like in aviation, aviation is starting to grow, and I really love what people are doing, like Kyle and Stig and these guys are all doing. And obviously we all miss all things aviation. But I think that like even my aviation finance guys, they're not really on it as much. But on the aerospace side, everyone is there. Like, chief scientist of NASA, Jim Green, is on all the time.
Wow.
The guys from JPL, the chief technical officer of JPL, Jet Propulsion Lab, that is a subset of NASA. The chief technical, Chris Mattman, is on there all the time.
Wow.
There's a lot in the sphere of influence, especially in space. And I feel like aviation is now growing with that. But in the space side, there's so many people on there.
Wow. Well,
and it's just this individual conversation networking, right? That is different than when you go to a conference and someone speaks and they come off the stage and you're like, hi, how are you?
Yeah.
Awkward fangirl moment. You're like, love you.
Yeah.
I just feel like this is much easier to get to know each other, to talk to each other, and kind of, I mean, and then people start talking about you, right? You're like, even the head of that law, space law and policy, he's like, people have been telling me that I should invite you. He's like, and I was like, okay, cool. I guess people are talking, and
I went into one of your space rooms on Clubhouse a little while ago, and I don't know where the 2 hours went, but it was so interesting. It was the day they were talking about, planting on Mars. And
Big Mac. Love Big Mac. He's great.
That guy talked about planting on Mars for like 20 minutes, and he really caught my interest because whoever was asking him the questions was asking him questions as technical as possible. It was like, right, how are we gonna get it there? And it was just like, oh, we're just gonna do this. But how are we gonna plant it? And it was just like, oh no, that's how you do that. And apparently he runs that company with his dad or something, or is that the same guy?
Yeah, Big Mac. So IJ, who is the powerhouse there, IJ, he and I are working in the spaceport development side. He actually, after I spoke to him back in March in Austin, he started a spaceport development company based on our conversation.
Wow.
Yeah. So IJ is really good friends with Big Mac, and Big Mac is the one that designs these cylinders. They're cylinders of different sizes. They could be tiny for the International Space Station locker, or they can, be as big as you need them. I'm ordering one. I want one in my house up in Canada that's winterproof, that I can bring into the basement and grow my own, salads and everything, and then put it outside during the warmer months.
Damn.
I haven't told him that, but I will see him soon. I'm like, I need one.
You need one.
And I had that question, like, if I, in the post-apocalyptic world, how big do I need it to be so that my friend and I can carry it while we're running? How big does that have to be? And how much does that weigh?
Yeah.
If you can make it as small enough to put in a little locker on the ISS,
then there you go, man.
Yeah, but it's a very interesting company, and they're doing some great things. He's an aviation lover, he's a space lover. But that specific, growing system that he's trying to use for the space station and has applications on Mars and the moon. I mean, we're going to have to feed people that are living and working on, anywhere.
Yeah, for sure.
The point is that this is a transportation highway we're developing to all these places. And, what do you need? What do you need on this transportation? On highways, you need pit stops.
For sure.
You need places for snacks. You need food. You need, gas.
Definitely.
All of that infrastructure is being built.
Yeah.
And so eating is just as important, right?
Yeah.
We're going to have to be able to grow food because we can't bring cows up there.
Definitely not. And the kind of people that are going to be going there initially have very expensive taste buds, so you want to be growing the best caliber of food, the likes of Bezos, who are using, they're used to eating in very expensive restaurants. You certainly want to make sure that you have the right kind of cabbage up there,
the more refined palates.
What's that? When I used to live, I forget, what's the fancy place that you guys, so there's Walmart, but there's a place where you guys all go to get your food. I don't know if it's Whole Foods or what one is kind of like.
Well, Whole Foods is one. Yeah, that's the more organic side.
There's another
and then
one.
We have regional grocery stores. So like here in South Florida, if you were here, you went to Publix. You for sure.
Publix. That's what I'm saying. Is that that's the fancy one, isn't it?
No, Whole Foods is fancy, but Publix is the place. Like you get your Publix subs, you get your Publix, like the deli is amazing. You get your fried chicken there.
For sure. You don't need to tell me that. I've definitely bought some from fried chicken from Publix.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have my local Publix, and they have, I know all the ladies that fry the chicken on weekends, especially when I walk in there, and they're always like, saved you some of the spicy ones.
Yeah. Sisters, brothers.
Yeah. But yeah, we have Publix here. So, but there are different stores in different areas, in regional areas in the US. But Publix, if you were in Florida, for sure, you hit up a Publix.
Yeah, for sure. Oh no, yeah. I mean, that's the one thing about living in Florida I'll never forget as well. Was I was a big fan of Wendy's. Wendy's was my favorite fast food restaurant. That was just at the time I was about 18, 19. And I can still tell you till this day, my order, because it was one order, it was a number 3 and it was a Baconator. That was it. If I land in Florida right now and I enter a Wendy's, I'm sure they haven't changed number 3. It's still a Baconator. And I always made it a double, sometimes a triple Baconator. Best burger on the planet. I mean, honestly,
food is important. I was just in Canada and having all of the maple things that I love. Because in the province of Quebec, we have a lot of maple. They made a maple Coke.
Maple
in Quebec.
Coke.
Maple Coke. Yes, it's delicious. I have
Wow.
some in my fridge because I snuck back a
Mm.
couple of goodies. I have a bit of a sweet tooth in the
Mm.
afternoon, like 3:30 to 4 p.m. I
Mm.
start like I need something sweet,
Something's with.
so I brought a bunch of maple goodies home.
Is that to kind of like give you energy for the rest of the day? Because you seem like you work very hard. You're always traveling. You're always in meetings. So maybe once your energy starts to run down a bit, you probably supplement that by having a bit of sugar.
I think so. I mean, I'm very kind of in terms of, how I'm regimented. I
Hmm.
eat early in the day. So
Oh,
most of my heavy eating is earlier in the day.
earlier in the day
And then like by 3 o'clock, I get like a little lull. So probably my blood sugar drops a
drops a
little and I
little
need
bit.
some sugar.
Right.
And then I try to have light dinners. But of course, then I have, like last night I had a business dinner. So of
Hmm.
course I ate a little, you're
A little bit more towards the end of the day. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So
When are
yeah,
you?
I mean, it just depends.
When are you going to come back to? So you say you might be coming back to Europe in January. All going well. All going well. You might be coming back to Europe in January.
Yes.
So that's when we're going to hang
Yes.
out. But also, if Dubai again, all going well, you might be given a speech. This is super exciting because that also is as a result of Clubhouse. I've been asked that, hey, you may. They said, Daps, you may speak in Dubai one day. And I said, hey, to ladies, to women. And they said, yeah, something like that. But we will try and get you to go to Dubai to come talk. And I said, okay, great. Jeez, I don't know what I'll talk about, but yeah, I mean,
Well, I talk a lot about spaceports. That is one of my big areas of expertise.
mm,
When I started my career, I worked for real estate developers
mm,
here in South Florida,
mm,
and then when the market kind of turned around, that's when I got into aviation and
mm,
aerospace. And so this is kind of coming full circle. Real estate development and aviation and aerospace. So I actually have an article that is
mm.
coming out in October. So I will go
Wow.
ahead and share it. I'm really excited
So
about spaceports.
everything about spaceport.
Yeah, well, the need for commercial spaceports,
Ah.
um, and how what is needed and why.
Mm, mm,
And that is a topic that I talk about regularly, not
mm,
just in the space rodeo, but in kind of space type, aerospace type events.
mm.
I'm going to be speaking to the Mexican government next month as
Wow.
well. But also in Dubai, I'm going to be talking
Talking
about
about that as well.
spaceports.
Just before we
Yeah,
go, Aviation Marie, so because this is a huge topic that I know you're very passionate about, so can anyone get into the world of spaceporting? Can anyone just like if you have a bit of money, provided you have some capital, you have some investors, you can do it, right? Anybody can do it.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
we're going to be doing some financing rounds soon.
Oh.
I'm involved with two spaceports here locally in the state of Florida and in Georgia.
Mm,
Providing services and then eventually ramping up to building launch pads.
mm,
But yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot of opportunities for investors to invest in not, the real estate itself
mm,
to create the spaceport, as well as ongoing operations and also the areas around these spaceports, because they're going to create, hubs of activity, brain trusts, universities. People are going to want to move there. They're going to want to operate there. I mean, Starbase City in Texas, where Elon Musk has his facility, is one of the fastest growing cities
mm.
in the, well, there's some other cities in the
Yeah.
US that are also fast growing, but
Mm,
they're bringing a lot of people down there, a lot of, people that want to work there, that
mm.
want to, work around there,
Yeah.
that want to provide services
Mm,
there. And, so it's essentially also a community model.
for
It's
sure.
not just, it's a community that develops around the activity.
Mm, mm,
There's also a balance with the environmental effects, and that's, kind of slowing down. For example, in Camden, they're still waiting, and now it's supposed to be a few more weeks to get their FAA license,
mm.
to operate a spaceport.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of balancing with the environmental groups and
Mm,
the environmental impacts, which is understandable.
mm.
The environmental impact statement that's needed, I mean, it takes years. If you don't have an existing airport, for example, it's an
Mm.
8-year process to get approved.
Jeez.
If you have an existing airport, just to like turn an airport and get the spaceport license, that's another 2 to 3 years just in environmental impact
Right.
review.
So you have to have an airport before you can have a spaceport.
I mean, it's easier. It's a shorter path,
Okay.
because because the airport, I mean, and they're all going to become kind of
Airports.
spaceports,
Okay.
spaceports, because it makes sense because you have vertical and horizontal
Yep.
takeoff,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Yep.
And like I said, you have all these different technologies that are going to be using the same. I mean, it's how you use airspace. So it's really gonna become aerospace ports
Wow,
instead
yeah, yeah,
instead of
yeah.
just airports and spaceports.
Wow, that'd be so cool. Some people are
Yeah,
going up this
because
way, some people are going off that way. And is Elon, is he out there in Austin or where about in Texas is he exactly?
I believe so. Starbase City is actually south of Austin,
Okay.
but close enough that a lot of people go back and forth between
Okay.
Austin. But what I heard was that Elon was living in some prefab home, the very small prefab home that's like, I don't know, costs like $50,000, I guess,
Yeah,
to build. It's like,
but you know that Elon wanted to do that, right? Did you hear about 2 years
yeah,
ago? He said that he feels like having material things or being materialistic or having expensive houses and cars is not the way to live his life, and it's a vector for people to attack him by.
mhm,
So he wanted to live as minimalistic as possible, which is really, really admirable for a man who's like the second richest guy in the world.
yeah,
That's
yeah. This
wild.
whole largesse and it, really attracts an attention that like I was always like, people like, oh, do you want to be rich and famous? I was like, no, I want to be rich enough that I can disappear. Like that's not, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
I don't want to be rich and famous. That's what's the point of that?
That's what I'm
If I can
saying.
be, rich and disappear, to me that's the better option.
That's the honestly, it's like, but that's the thing though, Marie. Don't you feel like what we're doing and the kind of fame that we're gonna get, it's going to be difficult to manage that? Because don't get me wrong, you're gonna be, and you already are someone that is, well to do with in the aviation community. But don't you just think like, in 5 years' time, you become this lady that you're giving all these spaceport talks because you are an early adopter, you're at the forefront of it, you become widely famous. How are you going to manage that? Because that's what you're doing. By giving these talks and writing these articles, you're putting yourself there. So how are you going to manage that?
I don't know. I mean, I guess we're gonna find out together.
Mm.
Because you're doing it too. You're building your brand and you're building your voice and and we got to figure out what we're gonna do with it and
Yeah.
how it's going to. I mean, at least like for me, I feel like with a limited scope,
Mm.
it's kind of more easy to control
Mm.
in a certain way.
Yeah.
That says, okay, well, I'm only focused on spaceports and space and air aviation.
Yeah.
And so I'm not like a rock star. I'm not going out
Yeah.
and giving concerts and stuff. So I feel like there's also like different levels in
Mhm.
in that sense.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I guess we just figure it out. We got to play it by ear
Definitely.
and find out what that all means.
Yeah.
But in order, what I found out though is in order to get these next, my goals, for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years
Mm.
accomplished,
Mm.
I have to brand
Yep.
because nobody's going to ask, an unknown person to come and talk about spaceports.
Definitely
No, let's
not.
have Aviation Marie do that.
Yes.
And it becomes an element of branding that's kind of necessary to grow
Mm.
or to accomplish those tasks that you want to accomplish. And then
Mm.
once you kind of accomplish those tasks, then maybe we're rich enough to disappear at that point.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah. I mean, honestly, yeah. I mean, that's the one thing that I keep thinking about sometimes is like, okay, Daps, I know you're going in that direction. I don't want too much of the fame. I'll take the wealth. I'll take the money. I'll take the money.
Sure.
I'll take the lifestyle, but I don't want the noise. I just want to be able to talk to Aviation Marie on my podcast every couple of months. By the way, I'm really looking forward to your article. Once that comes out, please, please, please. I know it's going to be all over social media, but can you just send it to me? Because I want to read it and I want to put it everywhere. I want everybody to know who you are because you are incredible. As I said at the start, you're one of the reasons why I started this. I know that there's so much we could have talked about, but you are more than welcome to come on my podcast as many times as you want. And one of my future goals is to have you in the studio. So like you're sat right across from me and we can talk properly. But just before you go, is there anything that you'd like to plug? Anything that you'd want people to check out maybe on your social media or anything like that?
I don't have anything. I mean, I hope the clubhouse community keeps coming in. I feel like it's changing now since, it's open, it's not by invitation anymore. And so I'm hoping that clubhouse is still happening, even though we're going back to in real life events.
Yeah.
So obviously, Space Rodeo on Tuesdays is one of my, that opportunity for me to talk to people who have that interest.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I mean, I'll be at Satellite now coming up in less than 2 weeks, and I'll be in Dubai. So, just reach out if if you want to really, talk spaceports, talk space. But yeah, I mean, I love being able to have the platform that I have, and being able to work with really interesting people all the time, meet interesting people like you, and and have our little walk-offs, which we still have to have very soon.
Yeah, the reason why I put this tie on today, by the way, just so you know.
I see that. You got a little,
just
nice for me.
Just for you, maybe.
Well, I haven't actually seen the video of the podcast. I've only been listening on Spotify.
You're an avid listener. You're probably one of the best. Even before we started doing the aviation podcast, you were listening to some of my other ones, which is one of the reasons why I appreciate you. So thank you so much. But yes, I know you do listen quite a lot. But the videos are hilarious because what it is you get to see me act goofy and wear a tie, and it's just like, that's what you're doing, mate. Well, it is what it is, But
no, but I would love that. Hopefully, when I'm in there in January or sooner, I would love to meet Nadine. Yes. I love her voice, and Seth seems really cool.
Cool dude.
I really want to meet Captain Dave. I've been dying to go out
Lovely
to California.
Guy.
I kind of want to just book a flight from LA to Mexico and make sure he's on it.
He is the best. He is the best. But this has been a ton of fun to do with you. I know for a fact we didn't talk about everything we could talk about, but I would like to thank you so much for coming on All Things Aviation podcast. And yeah, I suppose we will catch you again at some point in the future.
Yes. And please come back to Clubhouse.
Hey, we're coming. Because we've been building this for quite a few weeks now, we've been massively focused on getting the podcast out, doing the marketing. Our strategy to come back to Clubhouse would be, hey guys, we're back. This is what we've done in 5 weeks. Go check it out. But we're back again. And at the minute, we're actually trying to work on some funding. So the UK government is very kind because they offer arts funds. So when we can get some arts funds, my goal is to turn this into some kind of a company whereby, Nadine, and I've said this to them and they know this, Nadine and Seth can all be on some kind of a salary. So it's going to be a podcasting company. We're going to try and look for some sponsorships. We're then going to go back to Clubhouse and say, hey guys, we said we were going to do it. We've done it. And you're all welcome to come be our guests. And you guys are the reasons why we started this, because you gave us our initial audience. You gave us our initial community. If it was just me in a room, there would have never been All Things Aviation. But it's the fact that you came into those rooms every single Wednesday without fail, and you contributed to every of our topics. You were kind. I cannot thank you enough. I know you're about to go now, but I cannot thank you enough. I want you to know that when you get off this podcast today, that you have a special place in my heart and in the heart of everybody that's at All Things Aviation. You're a special woman. So thank you for all you've done.
Thank you. I love you guys. I honestly, you have no idea some of the stuff that I've been through and that I've been listening to you guys, like that day that Jonathan was on talking about safety and in Canada with the Canadian airline that he works at. And like, I was having a really bad day, but it just cheered me up. And it's one of those things that, you never know the impact that you have on listeners and on people that are really following this and being inspired. I mean, Seth's story was super inspiring. I missed it when it was on Clubhouse. I was so happy you guys did it in the podcast.
Yeah,
I loved it. I mean, and you're right. He went so in depth. He went really like step by step. And I'd love to meet his mom too. She sounds like his mom and his grandma just sound like awesome people.
Well, there you go.
So like I said, you just don't know the impact. I think it's a wonderful thing that you guys are doing, and you're proving, what you said, which there's not enough people like you.
Well, thank you so much, Aviation Marie. I appreciate you so much. But we're going to wrap up our podcast here. When it comes out, everybody in the world can check it out. But until then, guys, thank you very much for checking us out today. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Yeah. Allow me to introduce myself. Just in case you don't know. Say hello. 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 Yeah. Say hello. Say hello. Now I don't quite know how to start this. I can't lie, there's been some conflict. You've been a plight that's in my life. I try to use vices just to calm you. But you're my pride, my joy, my honor. My strength, my fight, my armor. You're my passion, you my drive. I don't know why I try.